don't even think about moving to Michigan unless you can handle the 5 things I'm going to share with you in this video.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're approaching Detroit Metropolitan Airport.
Now, Michigan is not for everybody, and my goal of this video is to shine a spotlight on some of the things that you may not consider when making that move here to Michigan, so you can ultimately make better decisions.
We're not moving to Michigan.
You know, moving to Michigan is a big deal, and there's a lot of things that are not like some other states, you know, here in Michigan. So I'm going to point out some differences. I'm going to point out maybe some similarities to where you live, but at the end of the day, you know, you're the only one that can make that decision to move here to Michigan. But at least you can move here to Michigan knowing Eric told you so. I told you this was what it's like. I told you you're going to love it. I told you you're going to hate it all at the same time. And hey, that's what I'm here for.
I told you so.
And if you're new to me and new to my channel, my name is Eric Meldrum. I make videos that are all things Michigan. My team and I have helped hundreds of people just like you buy, sell, relocate, and invest here in Michigan, and we absolutely love it. So if you are considering a move here, go ahead, give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email, or better yet, schedule that Zoom call so we can meet face to face, show you the city through our eyes, and match you up with the ideal lifestyle. All right, so let's get into the 5 things you absolutely need to know about when moving here to Michigan. You know, the goal here is to help you guys make better decisions when moving to Michigan, and when you're going through the first winter, the first summer, the first spring, or you're just traveling around Michigan or buying your first house, you can look back and say, I'm so glad I watched that video with Eric. He told me about this. It's not that big of a deal, or hey, it is that big of a deal, and that's why we did not move to Michigan in the first place. So let's get into it. And by the way, these 5 topics actually came from you guys. These are common questions that I get so often on our Zoom calls, and I jot them down every single time, and I write them, and I look back at my notes, and I compile the most common questions to make sure we're making relevant content for what you guys are asking for. And these 5 come up time and time again, so hope you enjoy. All right, so the first question, I get asked this so many different ways, and I'm going to try to summarize a few of them, but you know, the main question is Detroit scary? And a couple different versions of that, you know, is like, how far away from Detroit do I need to live in order for me to like feel safe? Or is Detroit as bad as they say it is, right? And so all asking the same question is like, if we move to a city near Detroit, are we going to have similar problems? Are we going to, if we move to Detroit, is it unsafe to live? Is it a good place or a bad place? And people are trying to get, you know, a feel for the safety of Detroit. Now, I have to put this little asterisk here because as a real estate professional, I cannot tell you whether a city is safe or not. I would encourage you to do homework, look at the crime stats, look at the things, you know, that are going on in those areas. And by the way, if you're looking at the crime stats in Detroit, also look up the city that you live in, because you might be surprised with some of the crime stats. You might feel like you're in a really great area, but you might be surprised at some of the crime stats there as well. So getting back to, you know, is Detroit a safe place to live? Now, you know, there's certain areas of Detroit that are not so great. Now, there's a ton of places in Detroit I would personally take my family to and not feel unsafe at all. Now, yes, there are those areas of Detroit that I wouldn't take my family to, and that's just the reality. That's just the reality of pretty much every major city in America. There's always that little area that you're like, yeah, stay away from that area. And everybody knows what I'm talking about. There's always that area in a lot of major cities. Detroit is not exempt. You know, Detroit's 142 square miles, so it's a very large landmass, you know, and the city's going through a rebuild right now, and we're trying to bring the downtown back first, and then it's going to trickle into the outer areas. And they've already started looking at, you know, areas like Corktown and Midtown and, you know, Brush Park. Those are basically complete. There's still a lot of construction going on, a lot of housing, but a lot of the infrastructure is getting built out. Supermarkets are coming back. You know, schools in Detroit still remain, you know, a bit of an issue, but, you know, for people to live downtown, there's a lot of great amenities and a lot of great things about it. So, you know, is Detroit safe? I would say yes and no, depending on where you're at in Detroit. All right, so the next question, this always cracks me up because it always comes from somebody who lives on the West Coast or some of the southern states, and they're already convinced that it's bad, but they frame it as, Eric, how bad are Michigan winters? And it's like insinuating that it's like, oh, we know it's bad already, but like how bad, right? How bad is it?
First time in Michigan. It's cold as balls here.
And guys, it's not that bad. I mean, Michigan winters, they can get pretty horrendous at times, I will admit. When the cold like drags out, you know, into March, You know, everybody's over it. They're sick of it, you know, but we get some really heavy snow, or we may get a mild winter with very light snow and it's just cold. So it really kind of depends on what winter we're getting here in Michigan. But I can assure you it's not that bad. I mean, as long as you have a good jacket, good gloves, hat, you know, winter boots, and you got a good SUV, you know, to get through the snow with 4-wheel drive, you don't really have to worry about anything, you know, and that's kind of a requirement if you're going to live in Michigan. Like, make sure you get a good car with 4-wheel drive or front-wheel drive. Don't be messing around with any of those rear-wheel drives in the winter time. They're great for summer. They're great for, you know, trolling around, but keep them in the garage for the winter. They're just useless. They'll slip all over the road. But there's also a ton of things to do here in Michigan, which makes a winter a lot of fun for some people. So if you're looking to ski or snowboard, you definitely have some options in northern Michigan. Boyne is a great one, you know, to go check out. And then you can also snowmobile. So that's one of the things that a lot of people like to do here in Michigan. There's tons of trails in northern Michigan. There's tons of trails, you know, in southeast Michigan as well. And if you're looking to put some skates on and go ice skating or play some hockey, there's tons of options as well. All right, the next question is, how bad are the roads in Michigan? And, you know, I always get asked this, and I started looking at, like, why are people asking this? Like, what are they finding out about the roads in Michigan? And if you Google roads in Michigan, you can see, like, it's pothole central. You know, there's tons of news articles, tons of headlines. You know, potholes are getting repaired in Michigan. The roads look terrible. There's crews out filling potholes like every single spring, and the news makes a big spectacle of it. So yes, to answer your question, the roads are bad in Michigan, and we hate it. We absolutely hate it here in Michigan. I wish the governor would do something about it. I wish they would use better materials. I mean, I don't think Ohio has these type of problems with the roads. I mean, there are tolls in Ohio, so that could be, you know, do we want to bring tolls to Michigan? I don't know. I don't have the answers for this stuff. All I know is there's states that get snow that have better roads than us, and they've always said, well, you got the snow, you got the salt, and you got the plows going over them, and it just chews up the concrete. And I'm like, how do these other states get by with it? They do the exact same thing we do. Are they using different salt? Are they using different plow trucks? They don't touch the cement? I don't know. I mean, you guys see where I'm going with this? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, some of these potholes are like as big as your tire. I mean, like huge, like absolutely massive potholes, and they can do some major damage to your rims and your car. So what's the solution? Well, I don't have a good solution for you, but make sure you're paying attention to the road so you miss those potholes. When you see somebody swerve in front of you, that likely means they're trying to avoid a pothole, and you should swerve too, or else you might be changing your tire on the side of the road. All right, next up on our list is, what are the seasons like there in Michigan? You know, we got winter, we got spring, we got summer, and we got fall. We got all 4 seasons, but there's actually only 2 seasons here in Michigan. I tricked you, you know, it's only 2, and that's construction and non-construction. Okay, we just got done talking about the roads, and that means there are orange construction barrels everywhere for half of the year, you know, and the other half of the year, the winter's here and they can't even do construction anyways. And here's what really sucks about Michigan is, if they don't finish that road come winter, some of the orange barrels are still out there, and you're like, what's going on? Like, how are they even working in the winter on these roads? Well, they're not. They were just too lazy to come pick the orange barrels up. And some of the roads are closed. You don't even know what's going on. So construction, non-construction, you can assure yourself that, you know, come springtime every single year, this is the season where the orange barrels start coming out, and you start looking at lane closures. You start looking at backups on the highway. So make sure you're planning your route and understand where the construction is. Most of the cities post where construction is taking place on their city websites. You get into some Facebook groups, you can see these alerts. If you're not on, you know, looking at the news every day, you might see one, you know, come across your social media feed. But it's really good to stay up to date with that. I'm not kidding. Like, make sure you're staying up to date. Look for construction and avoid it at all costs if you can on your route to work or coming home, picking up the kids, wherever you're going. It's unbearable if you're sitting in traffic and it just goes on for, you know, an extra half hour or an hour in your commute. You know, if it's avoidable, by all means, try to avoid it. And last up on our list today is one of my favorite things to talk about. You know, when I talk about these with people from other states who don't have these in their homes, I always see this little twinkle in some people's eyes. They're like, ooh, that would be cool because we're a little bit short on storage. And then other people's eyes are like, That's a little bit weird. Like, I don't know if I'm down with that. I don't know how I feel about those. And what I'm talking about are basements. We have basements in homes here in Michigan. And I know that's not common all across the United States, but it is common here in Michigan. We are a state that does have basements, and they do come in handy. I mean, I absolutely love our basement. You know, we got our gym down there, we got the kids' playroom down there. It's just an additional living space for us, and ours is finished. So, you know, there's different varying degrees of basements. You know, you have Michigan basements, which are really old, they're damp, they have a low ceiling. It's really just for storage. It's really for your furnace, maybe a laundry room down there, and then you can put some storage down there. So you do want to temperature control it if you are going to be putting storage in there. Get a dehumidifier down there. Make sure it's not, you know, moist down there where you're putting stuff, because obviously if you put stuff in a cold, damp, you know, dark place, it's gonna grow mold or fungus. So you want to make sure it's temperature controlled. And then you have basements that they started building in like the 50s and 60s, and a lot of these, you know, are finished basements, and they had like the shuffleboards on the basement floor. They started putting these tiles in, and they would tile in the shuffleboard. So every time I go in a home that was built between like the 50s and the 70s, I'm always looking for a lot of these like unique things, and it just brings me back, because we had one in my basement, you know, growing up. And then you should see some of the basements they're doing today, like, you know, finished basements, walkout basements. These are like massive entertainment areas. You got a pool table down there, you got a bar, you got a movie room, you got all sorts of things. I mean, you can go crazy with this, but they do come in handy. And that's one of the things I love, kind of painting the picture for most people. And they're like, I don't want anything to do with the basement. I'm like, think about it. You know, you have 2,000 square feet on the main level, depending on the type of home you're buying. You have that same exact square footage in the basement. So for example, if you're buying a 1,500 square foot house here in Michigan, the basement is likely going to be around 1,000 to 1,500 square feet. If you have a ranch, it'll be the exact same square footage. If you have a two-story, it's going to be some version of that. It might be 1,000 to you know, 1,200, but you're going to have that exact same square footage in the basement that you can use for additional living space or storage. So you don't have to have stuff, you know, piled up in the garage. And we saw a lot in Florida too, and we see this time and time again. You know, people don't park in their garages. They just have those for storage. Cars are outside, the garage is a storage. Not in Michigan. You want your garage empty in the winter. You want to be able to park in your garage. So most of the storage stuff goes in the basement. You know, your Christmas tree, all of your winter clothes, like, you don't have to worry about any of that. If you have a house with a basement, you don't have to worry about storage, because that's really taken care of for you with the basement. So overall, basements are a good thing, but they do have a few cons to them. You know, it is a foundation that is underground, and just as you might be thinking right now, you're like, well, what if it floods? Well, yes, they can flood. And they have flooded. Some pumps do fail. You know, sewer drains do back up. You do get water in the basement from time to time, but these things shouldn't happen regularly. These are kind of the oddities of having basements, and it can happen to anybody. You know, so make sure your basement's waterproof. Make sure, you know, there's no cracks in the foundation. When you do buy a home here in Michigan, that is something that the inspector should look for. They should be inspecting the basement walls, asking the homeowners and looking on the disclosures, has there ever been evidence of water in the basement, so you're aware of that. If the home does have a sump pump, then you know there is something there to take water out of the basement as water pools around, you know, the perimeter of it. But I don't want you to think like basements are this like big scary thing. Every single home, well, 99.9% of homes have them in Michigan. There are those homes that are in crawl spaces and slabs, but a good majority of homes in Michigan have basements, and as everybody's doing just fine. So it's not something you need to be like totally freaked out about. There's a lot more positives to basements than cons. All right, you guys, that is a wrap on the 5 things you need to know about moving to Michigan. And make sure you leave a comment below, because we are going to be selecting one random comment to get a little gift basket from Michigan, a lot of our local favorites, and we're going to mail that out to you. So make sure you leave a comment to get entered in to win that. And until next time, go watch some of these other videos, all things Michigan. And if you are making that move here to Michigan, definitely get a hold of us. Give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email. We want to be the best resource for you in making that move here to Michigan, and we absolutely love it. So until next time, go check out these videos, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.